Welcome back to So You Really Want to Learn Latin, and today we are moving into chapter 10 of the first book in the course, and so we are very much on the final straight for this first stage of learning Latin. And today we are going to be looking at the verb to be. In Latin, the verb sum. Okay, now sum is an irregular verb. The verb to be in almost all languages that I'm aware of is irregular. Some people say that's because it is such a common verb, it's got sort of squished into all sorts of different forms. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but the point is it is an irregular verb, and we're going to work out how it goes today. Okay, so first of all, the principal parts of sum are themselves most peculiar. So they are sum, esse, fui. It only has three principal parts, and therefore sum means I am, esse means to be, and fui means I have been. Okay? Now, in the present tense, sum goes sum es est, summus estis sunt. Okay? Those of you who know any French will see some similarities there with je suis, tu es, il est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont. Do you like my French accent? And it means I am, you are, he, she, or it is, we are, you are, they are. Okay, so far so good. Now the future tense of sum is ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritis, erunt. Okay, so again that's, pretty irregular, not like anything we've seen so far, except that you might notice it's sort of rhyming with bo, bis, bit, bimus, bitis, bunt. Okay, the future tense means I shall be, you will be, he will be, we shall be, you will be, they will be. Okay? And the imperfect tense of sum, also rather peculiar, goes eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratis, erant. Okay? Now, again, it's sort of rhyming, for those who like these sort of things, it's rhyming with bam, bar, spat, barmus, bartis, bunt, and it means I was, you were, he, she, or it was, we were, you were, they were. Okay? So those are the first three tenses of this irregular verb to be, and obviously I'm going to want you to learn those off by heart. The perfect tense of sum, while looking peculiar, shouldn't cause you any difficulty, because we already know that the perfect tense of any Latin verb is taken from its third principal part. So if we know the principal parts of sum, esse, fui, then we know the perfect tense. Fui, fuisti, fuit, fuimus, fuistis, fuerunt. Okay? And that means I have been, you have been, he, she, or it has been, we have been, you have been, they have been. Okay? Now, in a sense, that's all there is to it. It's a new verb you've got to learn. It doesn't follow any of the other main conjugations we've already learnt. It's not first conjugation, second, third, fourth, or mixed. It's an irregular verb and it has its own pattern. But it is, of course, a critical verb because the verb to be, just think about it in English, is used incredibly often. It's sort of the verb used more than any other, actually. Who are you? I am Nicholas. How are you feeling? I am sad. What's the weather like? It is cloudy. Okay, so a really important verb. Okay, now the next thing we need to learn about the verb to be, and this is a kind of little rule that we're going to learn, is the verb to be is followed by a complement in the nominative case. Okay, now we're used to using verbs where there is a subject and a verb and very often an object. When the verb is the verb to be, there is no object. There could not possibly be an object because the verb to be tells us something about someone or something. It isn't what they are doing, it's what they are. Who are you? I am Nicholas. I am a man. You are a woman. He is a dog. Okay? It doesn't tell us what someone is doing, it tells us what someone is being. Okay? So you've got to be a bit careful about that. We're so kind of geared in Latin to this subject, verb, object. Subject goes in the nominative case, verb agrees with the subject in its person and number, and then the object goes in the accusative. Well, the verb to be could not be followed by an accusative case. So I'll give you an example of that. If we wanted to say, for example, Marcus is tired, the Latin for Marcus, it's just a name, Marcus, is, it's our new verb we've just learnt, est, in other words, he is, Marcus est. And then what is he? He is tired. Now the Latin for tired is fessus, it's an adjective. But when you say Marcus is tired, you must make sure that the word fessus, tired, agrees with Marcus because it tells us what Marcus is. Okay, now that adjective, fessus, is the complement of the verb to be. And it goes in the nominative and it agrees with the subject. Okay, Marcus est fessus, or Marcus fessus est. The verb to be in Latin can sort of come where you would expect it to come in English. Unlike most Latin verbs, which tend to be the last word in the clause, the verb to be can sort of come much more where you'd expect it in English. Okay? So a complement can be an adjective, like Marcus est fessus. It can also be, and very often is, a noun. So you might say, Marcus est miles. Who or what is Marcus? He is a soldier. Marcus est miles. And the word miles is the complement, and it goes in the nominative, and it is agreeing with Marcus. So a complement obviously can be singular if the subject is singular, or it could be plural if the subject is plural. Okay, now we'll have a look at that in a little bit more detail in a moment, but just one other thing I want to say about the verb to be, and that is that it is very often used to translate a phrase such as there is, or there are, or there was, or there were. Okay, so you might have a sentence such as, once upon a time there was a soldier. Okay, now, olim is the Latin for once, in the sense of once upon a time. So once upon a time there was a soldier, olim erat miles. So erat is the Latin for he, she, or it was, but it can also mean there was. Once upon a time there was a soldier. Olim erat miles. Or you might have Iam sunt duo consules. Okay, now there are two consuls. So that word sunt is being translated as there are. Not they are, or just are, but there are. And it's sort of common sense when you need to put in the there word. If it doesn't make sense without it, put it in. Okay, so we'll just do a couple of little sentences to check that that all makes sense. So, for example, if we wanted to say, she is tired. Okay? Now, the Latin for tired is fessus. She is tired. We would want the word fessus to be feminine, so that would be fessa. And she is, well, we need the Latin for he, she, or it is, which from our new verb, sum est. There we go. So fessa est means she is tired. If we wanted to say we are angry, the Latin for angry is iratus. We are angry, it's plural, and let's say we're masculine, so we want the nominative plural, irati, and we want the Latin for we are, sum est summus. If we wanted to say the farmers are proud, okay, now the Latin for proud is superbus. We met that word when we came across Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud. So if we want to say the farmers are proud, we would have agricolae, they're the subject, sunt, are, and proud, superbi. Agricolae sunt superbi, or agricolae superbi sunt. And just one more, there was a boy called Marcus. Okay, so the Latin for there was, we've learnt, is erat. There is would be est, but there was is erat. We're using the imperfect tense. So we would have erat puer, there was a boy, and we're going for called Marcus. Do you remember we came across nomine, which is the ablative singular of the neuter third declension noun nomen, so it means by name. So erat puer nomine Marcus. Okay, now he is in the nominative singular case because it is the complement and he is agreeing with the subject puer. There was a boy called Marcus. Erat puer nomine Marcus. And when you see them in Latin, of course, it's, I guess, a little bit easier. You might have olim erat urbs magna nomine Roma. So, olim, once upon a time, erat, there was, urbs magna, now that's nominative singular, it's the subject, a great city. And what kind of city? What do we know about the city? Well, it's called Rome. Nomine Roma. Nominative singular for Roma, because it's agreeing with the subject. And nomine is this phrase we've come across, it means by name. Okay? Now, just before I leave this, there is a tendency, which I hope we're going to avoid, to start using the verb to be as well as a normal verb. Okay, I don't know what happens. I don't know why it happens, but it does. So if you have something like, they were loving the Queen. Okay. Now in the olden days, before we met the verb to be, we would have just said that they was the subject, were loving was the verb, and the Queen was the object. So you'd have reginam amabant. But because we now know that the Latin for they were is errant, if you're not careful, you suddenly go mad and you end up saying things like errant amabant. They were loving. Okay, so just think about it carefully. Only use the verb to be when you're trying to describe what someone is being. If what they're doing is doing something, use the verb of doing, such as amo or moneo or rego or audio or whatever they are doing. Okay? So just be careful. The verb to be is really good at explaining what people are, who they are, what they are being, what they were being. He was a king. They were soldiers. But if what they're doing is doing something, you need a proper verb, like the verb to see, or to hear, or to fall, or to kill, or to shout. Okay. Right. Now, I hope that last bit doesn't confuse the issue. I'm only putting it in here because I've seen so many times, once you learn the verb to be starts popping into your Latin at every turn. That doesn't happen when you're translating out of Latin because, you know, the person writing it didn't get his verbs to be and his verbs to not be muddled. But when you are writing Latin, just be careful that you don't start putting the verb in, or the verb to be in, all over the place. And when you do need the verb to be, don't forget this little rule. The verb to be in Latin is followed by a complement in the nominative case. Okay, that's enough on the verb to be. Next time we're going to have a look at the last two tenses that we're going to be learning in Latin, the future perfect tense and the pluperfect tense. But until then, keep up the good work. Let me know any problems you're having by dropping me a comment in the comments below, and keep up the good work. See you next time.